All right, everyone, we're back. We've gone through a lot of stuff with Strangles. We talked about how effective they are as a main staple in becoming a market hero and really crushing it in the market and having an edge in what you're doing. And again, a strangle is just a bet that the expected move is going to be greater than the actual move, right? And we also talked about some other stuff like when we sell strangles in periods of high implied volatility or where the expected move is greater than average, that even outperforms doing this strategy every single day. And then on top of that, if we buy back our strangles early, which is managing our winners, we even do better than we ever thought we could have done. So a lot of people are saying is, well, shit, what's the point of doing anything else? Like, what's the point of doing anything else? If this is so profitable, what the hell is the point of doing anything else? Now, I get that. It's important to diversify our positions and our strategies, but I can totally see how someone's like, well, shit, this works, and you did these studies for over a decade, and you did it every single day. What the hell is the point of doing anything else? I mean, I get that. So let's go into it. However, I don't think that you should have a portfolio that's completely allocated to just one strategy. However, for those who are interested in it, I think this definitely raises some points and it makes for good discussion on what a strangle portfolio looks like. So again, selling an out of the money call, out of the money put. We're hoping that prices stay in between the short out of the money call and the short out of the money put, leaving both of those options out of the money at expiration, or volatility decreasing over time, which decreases the value of those options. That's what we're looking for. So again, if you just do it every day, you're right 81% of the time when you're supposed to be right 68% of the time, and you make about $1.49 per day. Then if you just do it every day, and instead of just doing it and setting it and forgetting it, you buy it back for half of the credit you received. So again, if you receive $2 in credit for selling a strangle, you want to buy it back if the value ever gets to $1 before it expires, right? So if you do that, instead of being right 68% of the time, you're right 91% of the time for about $2 a day. Not bad at all. But a lot of people are saying, well, shit, what if we just do this? So we did a couple things here. So we did two studies in this lesson. The first is 13 years of data. So 2003 to 2016. Still a very large sample size. Not 14 and a half years of data, but a pretty big sample size. And what we did was we sold one standard deviation strangles, and the monthly expiration cycle closes to 50 days. So the first thing we did was we set it and forget it. And after that 50 days was up, we put on another strangle. And again, this was just one contract the entire time. So if you plan on doing 10 contracts for this, just multiply the results by 10, and that's what it'll be. So we did the first thing was we put it on, we set it. After that 50 days, we went back into the account, we put on another one, right? And the second thing we did is, as you guys know, this is a more profitable strategy, but I'm going to show you exactly how much more profitable it is. What we did was we put the trade on, and if we were able to buy it back for 50% of the credit we received, we immediately put on another one. If it never hit that 50% max profit, we held to expiration and put the trade on again after, right? So one is doing what we know is a profitable strategy, setting it and forgetting it, and the other is doing what we also know is even more profitable strategy, is putting the trade on, buying it back if we could, and continuously doing it. So this is just allocating more capital, being able to use our capital more efficiently and more often. Because again, buying it back at 50% of the profit over time, as you guys know, you're in the trade for about half the time, right? So we're able to allocate more money. So we just want to be able to show you guys exactly how much more profitable it is. So over that 13-year period, when we just sold the strangle and we just let it set, we were able to execute the strategy 126 times. We were right 80% of the time. So again, we still outperformed pretty drastically the 68% that we're supposed to. All right, we made about $1.03 per day, and total we were up about $6,200. That's really good. Again, what's really cool about this is this is only one contract. But on the other side, when we sold the strangle, bought it back at 50% of the max profit if we could, We were allowed 247 trades. We were right 90% of the time. We were average days in trade about 26, and we averaged about $1.69 per day. Total P&L of about $10,800. That's almost a 75% improvement of P&L. And the only difference between the two over that 13-year period is buying it back and managing your winners. That's the only difference, but a big difference, obviously. That's the only difference, but a big difference, obviously. So again, this is the power of buying back, of managing your winners, of just worrying about your winners and being able to have less time in the trade and redeploy your capital more frequently. This is obviously a profitable strategy, and the more times we do it, the more money we make. And again, the only difference between making $6,200 or $10,800 is buying it back at 50% of the max profit. That's the only thing. But again, a lot of you guys are saying, Steven, I want to know about the whole freaking kit and caboodle. I want to know, hey, this is the only strategy for me. I totally get that we're not just going to set it and forget it. I totally get that we're going to set it. We're going to buy it back if it hits 50% of our max profit, and then we're going to redeploy. So I'm going to take what we learned over here now, and I want to know exactly how much capital I should allocate to that so that I can just do that strategy and nothing else. So for this study, we did 11 years of data. We sold the one standard deviation strangle, and we allocated 10%, 15%, 20%, 25%, 30%, and 35% of our total capital. So if we had a $100,000 account, we only put 10 grand worth to strangles, and then 15 grand worth of strangles, right? And again, we're buying it back for 50% of max profit and redeploying. And then 20 grand, 25 grand, 30 and 35 grand. We don't go above that because that's just absolute nonsense. So 35 is our max. And if you want to go more than that, fine, but I just can't condone that. That's ridiculous. But what's cool here is if we only use 10% of our capital, that means we have 90% of our capital still on the sidelines to be able to do all these other strategies. So that's what makes this really powerful, and we'll show you guys here in a second. Right? So we did this again in the monthly expiration cycle closest to 15 days from expiring. And again, because we know that we make way more money, almost 75% more money if we just buy back our winners and redeploy the capital, that's what we want to do here. So we're doing that with all of these here. So how did we do, and what is the capital allocation that we should be using for strangles if we want to devote our entire portfolio just to the strangle and buying it back our winners? So on the left, and again, what was the date? So 2005 to 2016, 11 years of data, right? And I'm sorry. We started with 10 grand in the account, right? So everything started with 10 grand. So excuse me, in this case, we devoted $1,000 of strangles, $1,500 of strangles, $2,000 of strangles, $2,500 of strangles, $3,000 of strangles, and $3,500. And as it grew, because we know it's a profitable strategy, we were still as close to those capital allocations as we could. So if we start with 10 grand back at the beginning of 2005, we closed our eyes 11 years later, we were about $21,000 in the account. And because remember, this was from 2005 to 2007, so we went through a nasty financial crisis. The lowest the account value ever got was about down 25% to $7,500. Now, if we allocated 10% of the $10,000 portfolio at any given time, after those 11 years, we had about $15,000. However, that is underperforming the market, and we don't want to do that, right? If we allocate 15% at that time, we were also underperforming the market. If we allocated 20% of the portfolio, we were also underperforming the market. However, once we get to the 25% mark, we start to outperform the market. So out of that starting $10,000 account, if we use this close to 25% of capital every single time we executed one of these strategies, we outperformed the market. At the same time, we reduced our risk pretty significantly because the lowest our account ever got back to was about even. right? Where if we started with just buy and hold the S&P 500, we were down about 25%. Then if we allocated about 30%, we start to outperform the market by about 20%, which is a really big deal. So we make about $27,000 as the account value. And again, our lowest account value is less than just buying and holding the market. And then again, if we allocate 35% of our entire capital just to one standard deviation strangles, buying them back if they ever reach 50% of max profit, and immediately redeploying the capital, we outperform the S&P 500 by about, let's see, 45%, and we actually reduce our risk. So when people say, Steven, how much capital, if I love this trade so much and it works so much, how much capital at any given time should I devote to this strategy? Well, it's pretty simple. Anywhere between 25 and 30% not only outperform the market in an 11-year period, but at the same time, it also reduces your risk. So for those of you who want to go out there and primarily allocate to this strategy, 25% works, 30% works, and 35% works. I'll see you on the next video.